First of all, I hope she doesn't step down. I think that it would be a very, very sad day for Republicans if she steps down. I'd be very, very disappointed if she did. I'd like to keep her right where she is because our record is extraordinary against her. They are right now obstructionists. All they want to do is try and obstruct. I think they'd do much better as a party if they got along with us, if they called us and said, let's work on health care together, let's work on tax cuts together and tax reform, let's work on infrastructure together, we can do it together. I honestly think they do better at the polls. I think the American public is tired of obstructionists, and I honestly believe that. And when I say that, boy, would the people love to see two parties getting together and coming up with the perfect health care plan.
That was the President of the United States speaking this morning on Fox News. In the early part of that comment, he was talking, of course, about Nancy Pelosi. Joining us now from Capitol Hill, Chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Democratic Congressman Cedric Richmond of Louisiana. Congressman, great to have you with us this morning. We've got reports of a meeting led by your colleague Kathleen Rice of New York yesterday, held there on Capitol Hill at her office, discussing a possible change of leadership at the top of the Democratic Party. Reports are you attended that meeting. Is that true, number one? And number two, were you talking about changing leadership?
I did attend that meeting, but I think most of that meeting was really a family discussion, and as every good family discussion, you probably should keep most of it in-house.
Was the overarching theme of it, though, was it called in the wake of the loss in Georgia, Jon Ossoff, and also in South Carolina, was the idea of should we make a change in our party and do something differently?
Well, the theme of it was how do we get back to a majority so that we can implement the policies that affect the people that we represent, and how to make this country a more perfect union, how to provide more economic opportunity, how to lift incomes from where they are now. And that was the gist of the conversation. Some people in there wanted to see a change in leadership. Some people wanted to talk about just how do we get back to the majority. So that was the gist of it.
Okay, so from where you're sitting, Congressman, is Nancy Pelosi doing an effective job as leader?
I think that, and I just heard the comments by the president, I'd put Nancy Pelosi's record up against Donald Trump's record any day. She ushered in the Affordable Care Act, which provided health care to millions and millions of Americans, 430,000 in Louisiana through Medicaid expansion. So she has a great body of work, and I don't think we should ever let people forget that.
So you support her remaining as leader?
I think she's done a great job, and her body of work speaks for itself.
So
I think
we
just have to figure out, a way to get back to the majority, and that is the most crucial point of where we are now.
So she should stay as leader then, Congressman?
Well, I'm chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and I will do what my membership dictates, and I think that my membership has strong support for Nancy Pelosi.
Congressman Donny Deutsch, just want to bring some of my branding background to the table. I like Nancy Pelosi, actually. I'm a big fan. But the harsh reality of the Georgia election is that the ads where they used her as a poster child, for lack of a better word, of what's wrong with the Democratic Party were some of the most effective ads. My concern would be, and it's not fair, and I'd love your reaction to this, is that because she's been there, it would be like using Hillary Clinton at this point. She is an easy tool, an easy target to, with one blanket, say, oh, this is the old guard, this is what's wrong. That in and of itself, how do you overcome that, where a fresh face does not give the opposition party the ability to do that? That's my concern. It's not fair, but how do you overcome that from a branding point of view?
Well, I think that you use that in the South, and I'm from the South, and I represent a district in Louisiana, and I think that there are a number of things you can do in the South that are easy, that doesn't make it right. You can always have subtle hints of racism or sexism and other things, and it will be effective to some extent, unfortunately. So I don't think it makes it right. I think it's the reality we live in, and we just have to do a better job as Democrats of talking about what we believe in, what we stand for, and what our track record is. And I think that you also can anticipate what people will use against you and take it off the table very early. So I think both races were incredibly difficult races to win. But we didn't, and we wanted to, and we kind of expected to. So every loss hurts, and we have to figure out how to go back and win.
Hey, Congressman, it's our understanding that that your caucus has rejected the opportunity to go to the White House and meet with President Trump. What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, look, I attended the inauguration on behalf of the Congressional Black Caucus. The executive board went to meet with the president. In fact, we presented him with a 130-page document that outlined our priorities, our suggestions for minority communities, poor communities, rural communities all across America. We sent him 8 different letters expressing concerns or suggestions. We've not had a response to the 130-page policy document. We've not had a response to the 8 letters that we sent, and we've not had a response to the budget that we submitted to him. So the question becomes, why are we meeting? We have not had a response to anything yet. So the fact that it would be a substantive meeting, we just doubt it.
But given the isolation of the White House and the isolation of any president, including this president, why not take the opportunity to go down to the White House and rattle the teacups down there about just those issues?
Well, we did that. And the commitment that was made in that meeting was that, and we know the role of the president, and we respect it. What we asked was that he make cabinet secretaries available so that we could meet with them to talk about our issues and other things. So we went to the White House. We respect the role of the president, even if the president doesn't respect that role. And we left him with a policy document. And here's a copy of what we gave him. So we have yet to get a response to that. So our views haven't changed. So if you want to know what we stand for, our ideas, just go back and read the document that we left you with. But to go down, 49 members of the Congressional Black Caucus, to trot down to the White House to have a social gathering, because that's what it would be, just would not be productive. And my membership decided that it's not something they were interested in doing.
Congressman, very quickly, update on Congressman Scalise's health.
I went visit Steve on Tuesday. He was up, he was smiling, and we were joking. I can tell you one thing, that he realizes that he is lucky to be alive, and that he was praying very heavily during those moments to just see his family, his wife and his daughter and son again. And it was just a real moment and a precious moment to be able to talk to him. And then we went back to our usual bantering about the baseball game and the fact that they can't win without him, at least in his mind. So, so he's doing well, and his spirits are up, and of course everybody in Louisiana and across the country are praying for him.
That's good news, Congressman. Thanks very much, Cedric Richmond, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.